brother, nice cut. I see you at Sturgis? Oh, or was it Daytona? What chapter are you? Bakersfield? Flagstaff? Cheyenne? Jasper? Oshkosh? What you ride there, bro? Super Glide? Hydro Glide? Street Glide? Wide Glide? Dual Glide? Electric Glide? Tour Glide? Low Glide? Tri Glide? Oh, V-Rod?
Just kidding, it's been me all along! An American tradition like apple pie or James Caan, Harley-Davidson has survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Great Recession, an AMF buyout, and one of the funniest episodes of South Park ever.
What did you say?
A Harley is the ultimate symbol of freedom, and their story is the quintessential American dream. This is everything you need to know to get up to speed on Harley-Davidson. If you've never done a motorcycle before, let us know if we f***ed up. Harley-Davidson was started by buddies William S. Harley and Arthur Pete Davidson on the north side of Milwaukee in 1901. Their first production motorcycle, the Model 0, was made after Arthur's brother Walter got up in the mix. It had a 24 cubic inch single cylinder engine that was not very powerful, but apparently it was fun. It had no clutch, no front brake, no suspension. It wasn't chain drive or shaft driven. It ran on a leather belt, kind of like how I used to run after I heard my dad's leather belt. A couple years later, a third Davidson brother joined the crew and they moved their operation from a 10 by 15 foot backyard shed to a big boy shop on Chestnut Street in Milwaukee. That is still where Harley-Davidson headquarters currently stands today, 116 years later. Up until 1907, Harley had been putting the F-head single cylinder motors into their bikes, but William Harley was looking to change it up a bit. Fresh off of getting his mechanical engineering degree, he came back to Milwaukee with his brain full of engineering stuff and a revolutionary idea. They were all standing around the bubbler. That's what people from Milwaukee call water fountains. Hey, you guys, I got an idea for a new engine. Oh yeah? Oh, you got yourself an idea, do ya? What you got there? Oh yeah, you betcha. It's got 2 cylinders in a 45-degree V-twin shape. I call it the V-twin. Oh, wowie, you betcha. Yeah, that does sound like a good idea. Oh yeah, it does sound like a good idea. This calls for some brats and some Leinenkugels. Yeah, you put the brats in the beer and you cook them and then you just sear them on the grill. You don't cook them all the way through on the grill, no. Let's get some cheese curds. Make sure they squeak. If they don't squeak, they're not real good cheese curds. Well, of course I'm gonna get them to squeak. Oh, go Pack. Go Pack. What's the Packers? Oh, they're a football team that's gonna be invented in a few years' time. We're gonna love Brett Favre. In 1909, Harley released their first production model to feature their legendary 45-degree Mo Power V-twin, the Model 5D. It wasn't a great success, but they saw a lot of potential in their new V-twin engine design. Oh, and it was also the first time that their motorcycles started sounding like Harleys. The 45-degree offset of the cylinders and the shared crankshaft pin meant that the firing sequence alternated between 315 and 405 degrees. That odd firing pattern created the plop-plop sound that is such an important part of Harley-Davidson's brand. Ironically, at the time, Harley-Davidson was marketing their motorcycles for the safe, sane rider who uses his machine both for business and pleasure and enjoys his motorcycle as it was designed to be used. 2 years later, in 1911, they released their first V-twin success on the Model 70. Harley prided themselves on building quiet motorcycles. That tradition has not been kept. Harley wasn't marketing to rabble-rousers, they were selling their bikes to businessmen like me. Oh yeah, and also to young, fearless board track racers. The first form of popular motorcycle racing were at the Motordromes. Wooden tracks that featured bank turns in excess of 50 degrees. To put that into perspective, the highest bank track today in NASCAR is Talladega at 33 degrees. At a 50-degree bank angle with a radius of 25 meters, you'd have to maintain a speed of over 116 miles per hour to keep from sliding off. 116 miles per on a motorcycle without brakes. No, thank you. It was very, very dangerous for racers and spectators. A lot of racers died, and a lot of spectators got hit in the face with motorcycles. The Motordrome tracks would soon get the nickname Murderdrome. Yeah! And Harley wanted no part of it. So they opted to race on flat tracks instead. They immediately started dominating, even getting the nickname, the Wrecking Crew. They weren't just selling to kids racing around the track. They also sold motorcycles to the police, mail carriers, and the army. That's when Harley started making the real bucks. That real Wisconsin cheddar cheese. The year was 1916. Pancho Villa was stirring up a bunch of trouble on the US-Mexico border. A US general by the name of Black Jack Pershing was sent on an expedition down to New Mexico to capture him. The bandits down there were hard to catch on their buff horses, and Pershing wanted an edge. So he wrote to Harley-Davidson and asked for some bikes. Harley said okay, and they sent down 12 hogs outfitted with sidecars and full machine gun turrets. They never captured Pancho, but they had a friggin' blast. Yeah, shoot that tree. Okay, shoot that cactus. Okay. America entered World War I in 1917, and Harley-Davidson delivered, sending over a third of all of their motorcycles to the troops. By the end of the war, it was estimated that the Army used some 20,000 bikes, and the majority of them were Harley-Davidsons. I could go on and on about Harley's military history, but back to civilian life. Over the next couple of decades, Harley-Davidson grew and expanded beyond their wildest expectations. They continued to supply government branches with bikes. They adopted their infamous hog mascot, and they dabbled in racing, which we'll talk about more in just a little bit. Harley designed a few memorable bikes during this era, starting with the Flathead in '29, but it was their first overhead valve motor in 1936 that really drove Harley into the next era. This Flathead is nice, don't you know, but I want some more power. More power? Uh-oh. More power, don't you know? Here it comes. Yeah, more power, baby. Yeah, more power, baby. You more power, baby! Harley-Davidson's first overhead valve big twin, the Knucklehead. It got its name from the valve covers resembling knuckles on a fist. The original Knucklehead was a 61 cubic inch V-twin with pushrod activated overhead valves pumping out a whopping 40 horsepower. It was a major step up from any engine Harley had ever made. It was also the first motor Harley-Davidson designed to have a recirculating oil system. But with new technology comes new problems, and the Knucklehead had fairly severe oil leakages, mainly from the rocker boxes. By 1941, they were refining their Knucklehead when America entered WWII. Harley-Davidson pretty much stopped production of all civilian bikes in order to make the bikes specifically for the American Army, the WLA, aka the Liberator. Coming through. The Liberator used their flathead motor, ditching the overhead valve design in favor of the tried and true side valve engine. These motors were easier to work on and didn't have the complex parts like push rods or rocker arms that were necessary in the Knucklehead. They were painted in olive drab or black and even came with blacked out headlights to reduce visibility when running night missions. The bikes also featured Springer front suspensions while the rear had no suspension, giving this type of motorcycle the nickname Hardtail. World War II ended, and after it was all said and done, there were a ton of Harley Liberators that could be scooped up on the cheapity cheap. GIs that had come back from the war suddenly had some time on their hands and a lot of pent-up aggression. They bought the same bikes they had ridden in the war, customized them, and cut off or chopped off unnecessary parts. This is where the term choppers comes from. Rowdy-ass GIs took their army bikes and met up with other GIs, and soon enough, motorcycle clubs were formed. One of the most famous clubs to come out of that era was the Hells Angels. Formed in 1948 as a social club, the Hells Angels have come to be known for terrorizing communities with their loud bikes and outlaw tendencies. Funny thing about the Hells Angels biker gang is that they're a corporation now. You can buy stock in the Hells Angels. The instance that really cemented the outlaw biker image happened when the American Motorcyclist Association Gypsy Tour took over the town of Hollister, California. It started with some drinking, and by the end of the weekend, there was destruction, mayhem, arrest, and a full-blown riot. The media blew it out of proportion, but it didn't matter. The mainstream view of bikers was forever changed, brother. The 1953 film The Wild Ones, starring the looks very strikingly similar to me, Mr. Marlon Brando, brought the bad boy biker image to the masses. And it was this outlaw publicity that actually helped sell Harley motorcycles. It also didn't hurt that superstars like Clark Gable and Elvis Presley started to ride in them too. Around the same time, Harley-Davidson released their midweight K model that featured an aluminum 45 cubic inch motor that put out 30 horsepower and had a top speed of 100 miles per. This was the first Harley that had hydraulic suspension on both wheels, and it was built to compete with quicker and more nimble imported motorcycles like the 500cc Triumph Speed Twin and the BSA A7. You see, Harley was feeling the pinch from European competitors, not only in the commercial market, but in racing as well. Those guys' bikes were lighter, faster, and had better technology in the engine and suspension department. Not to be outdone, Harley-Davidson released their all-new production race bike, the KR 750. The last of the side valve design, the KR 750 was a 45 cubic inch V-twin that put out 50 horsepower and could reach a top speed of 120 miles an hour. It copied some of the technology off the European bikes, like the hydraulic fork front suspension, a rear swing arm, and foot-controlled gear shifts. The Model K showed the world that Harley could produce a smaller, more nimble bike that could compete with British two-wheelers. Harley-Davidson was winning races, but the future of engines in race bikes began to favor the overhead valve design. And in 1957, Harley-Davidson responded with the Sportster. You ever heard of it? Maybe the most significant bike to come out of Milwaukee in the 50s. The Sportster is considered to be the granddaddy of the modern day superbike. It's also probably the best hill climber, drag racer, land speed racer, ice racer, road racer, flat track racer, all-around road bike that Harley has ever made. Like a lot of Harley's first-year bikes, the Sportster wasn't perfect. Dealers wanted a more sporty Sportster, and so in 1958, the XLCH was born. The CH stands for competition hot. If the original Sportster was an underpowered Stang, the XLCH was a fire-breathing buff horse. The first XLCHs came with no lights, a 9:1 compression ratio, magneto ignition, straight pipes, bob fenders, and a 2.25 gallon tank off of a dirt track racer. Finally, the sport guys had the bike that they always wanted. Congratulations, sport guys, you worked hard for it. Harley-Davidson was still the king of big boy bikes, but this was the 1960s, and the tides, they were a-changing, man. Rising from the east was a new challenger to the American brand, Honda. Honda had a nifty little 50cc motorbike called the Super Cub, and they wanted to sell 200,000 of them. And in order to sell that many bikes, Honda needed to change public perception of the outlaw motorcycle image that Harley had created. So Honda came up with a campaign so smart, you'd think that I had come up with it.
You meet the nicest people on a Honda. You meet the nicest people on a Honda.
Instead of drunk, rowdy hog boys, Honda had posters with housewives, kids, young couples, and other respectable members of society, man. And gosh darn it, the campaign worked. Harley-Davidson was faced with a tough decision: refute their reputation and start marketing to college students and future accountants named Doug, or stay true to their fan base, brother. So what did they do? Well, Harley doubled down on their bad boy image and stayed true, of course. But it wasn't enough to fight off the Japanese brands. And in the late 60s, Harley-Davidson was in desperate need of capital. They needed to expand their manufacturing capacity and diversify in order to stay relevant. 1969 was a year of firsts for America. We landed on the moon, supposedly. Woodstock happened, supposedly. And Harley-Davidson was given financial aid from an angel coming down from the heavens, America Machine Foundry. AMF was one of the United States' largest recreational equipment companies and was best known for making bowling stuff. AMF was used to mass manufacturing, and this didn't translate all that well to the high quality processes that Harley was known for. They streamlined production and laid off a ton of workers, which is not cool, dude. Sales and quality were declining, and Harley-Davidson was struggling to stay afloat. Now people call them Harley drivable. Oh, roasted! But the 70s did produce some iconic motorcycles for Harley. The 1977 FXS Lowrider, the XLCR Cafe Racer, and the 79 Tour Glide. But no other bike comes close to the success of the XR 750. Built in 1970, Harley spent the next 2 years refining it, specifically to win races on the dirt and on the pavement. Riders on XR 750s have won 29 of the 37 AMA Grand National Championships from 1972 to 2008, and it has more wins than any other bike in AMA racing. The XR 750 was also made famous by this guy. You ever heard of him? Whoops, I forgot to say his name. His name is Evel Knievel. You ever heard of him?
Do not ask for your respect, I demand it.
The motorcycle stuntman of the 70s, and probably the motorcycle stuntman of all time.
The all-time king of the daredevils, Evel Knievel.
He jumped over cars, vans, Greyhound buses, school buses, canyons, water fountains, and he would have jumped over some sharks if he didn't crash his XR 750 and break his collarbone. Nolan. The 70s were coming to an end, and the AMF deal just wasn't working out. They didn't see Harley fitting into their high dollar generating bowling equipment portfolio, and they were looking to sell. The only problem was they pretty much ruined the company and nobody wanted to buy it. Are you breaking up with me? Listen, we make bowling stuff. We tried the whole motorcycle thing, and it's just like not us. We're not very good at it. Cool, no. I didn't want to be the one to have to do it. I've been thinking the same stuff. You guys suck at this. That makes it different for me. Maybe we can try and work this out. No, it's not me, it's you. Bye. Harley bought back their company for $80 million. They were on a mission to bring their brand back to its former glory days, but it turns out this wasn't the most opportune time. Middleweight bikes like the Honda 750, the Yamaha 650, and Kawasaki's Mach 3 were gaining popularity, but Harley was mainly selling their larger, high-end, 1,000 plus cc bikes. Harley-Davidson remained as the top-selling brand of heavyweight motorcycles, but saw that they would need an answer to the Eastern competitors, or they'd have the same fate as every other American motorcycle brand, i.e. the brave. So they went to the one person who every smart person goes to for help. Ronald Reagan, the Gipper himself, boy. Harley-Davidson petitioned the president to impose tariffs on bikes 700cc or greater, and in 1983, Mr. President Reagan obliged, raising import taxes from 4% to what? Guess how many? I don't know, 7%? Nope. 15%. Nope. It can't be 30%. 49%. Wow! That just seems downright unfair, Mr. President Ronald Reagan.
They're betting against America itself, and that's a bet no one will ever win.
Though it was pretty unfair to the Japanese, it did give Harley-Davidson a little bit of breathing room. They retooled their factories and, more importantly, implemented a new, revolutionary, just-in-time inventory system. To give you an idea just how bad AMF was making motorcycles, the number of motorcycles with defective parts that Harley produced was 50%. Half of their bikes were broken. With the new system, that plunged to 2%. And they'd continue to improve upon their tarnished images from the AMF days. And in 1985, they released their all-new Evolution motor. This new motor is believed by some to be the saving grace of the Harley brand. The Evolution Big Twin saw a 15-year run in Harley-Davidson's Dyna, FXR, and Touring frames, and they still use it in the Sportster today, 34 years later. It's reliable, it's powerful, and it put Harley-Davidson back on the map. Another bike that came out of the AMF HD ashes was the Softail. Harley-Davidson owners are purists. They love the old school, rough riding, hardtail suspension of the past. It's a macho thing, okay? You either get it or you don't. But their old school cabooses didn't care about being macho. And Harley-Davidson engineers developed the Softail, a bike that looked like it had rigid rear suspension, but they tucked the shocks under the transmission. I still look cool, don't I? Yeah, how's your cushy, honey? It's good. And in the 90s, they were put on another future classic motorcycle, the Fat Boy. The Fat Boy was designed by Willie G. Davidson, grandson of founder William A. Davidson. You remember from before? The Fat Boy used the Softail suspension, front and rear solid cast disc wheels, shotgun exhausts, and gently flared fenders. It was ridden by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Hasta la vista, baby!
Come at me if you want to live. Get down! John Connor! John Connor?
Basically, Harleys were the coolest thing ever in the 90s. After the year 2000, Harley released an all-new bike, the V-Rod. And what made the V-Rod so unique was that the motor was jointly developed with Porsche. Yep. The Revolution was a liquid-cooled, dual overhead cam, internally counterbalanced 60-degree V-twin engine producing 115 horsepower with a 9,000 RPM redline. What is this, a Honda? It was bulletproof. You get a sweet muscle bike with an awesome motor that Harley enthusiasts didn't buy. Which leads me to my final point. Harley has relied on traditionalists for their sales success for quite some time now. And while they might be one of the few companies that actually listens to the wants of their customers, by doing so, they've failed to reach other potential buyers. In 1987, half of all Harley riders were under 35. Less than 20 years later, that number dropped to 15%. And in 2008, Harley-Davidson stopped reporting the average age of riders because their average customer was 48. But Harley has been through tougher times, and the company is making moves to appeal to a younger and more diverse crowd. In 2020, Harley will release the Pan America, its first adventure touring bike. They'll also release their Street Fighter, aiming to do battle with Ducati and KTM in the middleweight market. And later this year, they'll be releasing the most un-Harley bike in the history of the company, the all-electric Livewire. Thanks to Fixed for sponsoring this episode of Up to Speed. Look, Father's Day is right around the corner, and I know you haven't bought anything for your dear old dad yet, you goober. But don't stress. Just get him a Fixed OBD2 sensor. It plugs right into any car made after 1996. That's what OBD2 means. And it sends all types of cool, real-time diagnostics straight to your phone. When that confusing check engine light comes on, Fixed will tell you and your dad exactly what is wrong with your car in easy to understand terms. Your dad could save costly trips to the mechanic, and you know dads love saving money, they do. From now through Father's Day, you can order a Fixed sensor for a limited time, 25% off. Just use the code DONUTDAD and click the link below to get your pops fixed. Thanks for watching this episode of Up to Speed. Let me know if you want to see more motorcycle videos. I want to do an Up to Speed on the Gixxer. I want to do one on the Hayabusa. Do you want a whole show dedicated to motorcycles? Jeremiah, one of our new riders, knows a lot about them. He broke his arm riding one. Tell Jeremiah to get better down in the comments. Thanks for watching again, guys. This is the coolest thing ever. You want to get yourself some cool donut gear? We just restocked all of the OG logo stuff. It's at donutmedia.com in our shop. I love you. Bye. Oh,